Happy Thursday. Happy book launch day. Oh my gosh. You guys were already number one for Manxiety for Damon Manx, who is, published with Last Waltz Publishing. So let's just dive in to this book that's already a bestseller. Like, holy crap. Like, happy birthday for your book. Amazing. So tell us a little bit about Manxiety, a collection of disturbing stories. So tell us a little bit about it.
I will. Boy, this day has been a whirlwind, though. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm really psyched about this. So, Manxiety from its inception. I'm a guy with a dark past. That's no secret. Everybody knows that. Been through addiction, been through incarceration, um, 10 and a half years clean and sober. But, these stories their inception started during the time that I was incarcerated. I started reading a lot. Like I voraciously read. I studied. I got my college education while I was incarcerated, and I really focused on trying to turn my life around, which I feel like I have. Um, I read a book while I was incarcerated called 20th Century Ghosts by Joe Hill. And the short stories in that book were so original. Like it just inspired me. And of course, I had read horror stories in the past. I read King and I read Bradbury and I read Clive Barker, but nothing inspired me like this book of short stories to pursue my writing career. So I started writing and I really started writing and I started collecting short story after short story. And I said to myself, when I get out, I have this master plan of how things are going to go. I'm because everything was written in little composition books, scratched together. Like I could barely read them. I had to transfer that. I had to edit that. I had to compile that, see what was good, what was not. And I wanted to go about getting them to magazines and seeing what was worthy. And I got a couple bites, but the the culmination of that work, that struggle is Manxiety. And it's so near and dear to me because a lot of these stories are based on what's happened to me. That struggle that I've been through, the addiction and the incarceration and the anxiety and getting out of prison in the midst of a pandemic. And it's all about the story. It's about the transformation of a guy who's turned his life around, and that's what Manxiety is. And that for me, this is, I don't know, is it bad to love your own book? I really love this book, and I'm so excited about it, and I'm so excited to have it out. And yeah, like there's 80% of these stories are either based on something that's happened to me, or they're actually something that's happened to me word for word. So yeah, this is me. This book is me. So yeah, that's in a nutshell. Oh, we're out of time. Thanks for coming out tonight, guys.
No, I love that. And no, you should love your own book. I mean, you should be your book's number one fan, right? You're the author of it, and it's more personal for you, especially this kind of book, right? Because there are some experiences in it that you personally experienced or similar ones to that. So it's very personal for you. And I think it is, one of those things. Was it kind of therapeutic for you to write and get all of this out, and kind of now going back, seeing it like, wow, I really did turn my life around in these instances that I have experienced and things. So it almost has to be therapeutic, wouldn't you say?
Well, totally. I mean, these stories, this book is that catharsis. This is the chrysalis of my becoming the man that I always knew I could be. I had to certainly turn away from the guy I had become, the guy who got himself, locked up, but leaving that behind, um, and transforming, that is that, and these stories have been the process of that struggle. So getting it out, I think, you know, a lot of a lot of healing is done when you take a thought or you take an emotion and you put it to words and you put it on paper. it kind of like takes the energy out of something. Like if you're feeling negative or you're angry and you write it down and you put it on paper, it's like it kind of dissolves it or dilutes it a bit. I've even seen people who write down, like who they're mad at, take it and then, burn the paper and, find closure in that, and yeah, the writing process is very therapeutic. And for somebody like me who has gone through addiction problems, having a creative outlet is key. And, I mean, there's a lot of ways to find sobriety, but having a creative outlet to me, I think is something that you there's nothing better you can do than to have that to go to. And for me, it worked so well.
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely. I think, you know, coming from addiction and battling that, right? I think having some kind of outlet, especially a creative outlet and stuff to express and pump your energy towards is important. So, how long has this book been in the making? Is it something that, you kind of just sat on for a little bit, or how long has this been in the process?
Uh, I'm not even sure which is the first story in this book that was written. Um, it's probably The Dead Girl, which was written probably around 2016, 2017, and a couple others are along that same line. Um, this book has been in the works since then. Um,
Wow.
but I not every story is worthy of a compilation. I wanted to make sure I had the right grouping of stories. A couple of them I wrote fairly recently, like right before the book came out, and the couple that I thought were going to get on there didn't make the cut.
Wow. So it's been a journey and a process to get this book out and kind of picking the stories that go into it and stuff. And see, this is why I love authors like you that do like, a collection of short stories and it's personal because it really is a whole like journey and it's something that people can really resonate with and it's in a genre that you like, right? Your own kind of spin and stuff on that. So I know that we have other supporters on with us today. So tell us and introduce us to everyone that's joining us today.
All right. Well, you know what? I'm going to start off with the person who I have known the longest. I've known
Yeah.
I've known her all of her life. That would be my sister Danielle Manx in the center square. I guess that would be the Alice Brady part if I'm looking at the boxes correctly. Um, Danielle, we both have pen names, so I'm going to call you Danielle tonight. And she's been my sounding board. We bounce off material with one another. She's upstairs writing. I'm downstairs. Does this sound good? No, that sounds horrible. Here, use this. So we're kind of each other's.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
we ping pong back and forth on that. Do you want me to go forward and just introduce everyone one by one, or are
Yeah,
we going?
let's just
Okay.
do it. Let's say hi to everybody
Yeah.
that's here to support.
All
Yeah.
right, next down the road in the Cindy Brady Square on mine is Wendy, and Wendy and I have been friends since 3rd grade, and she is my constant reader, my best friend, and definitely always has my back. And thank you very much. Love you. Thanks for coming. Gonna go around here. James Carlson, editor of Manxiety. Um, Amazing dude. James and I were met at the same publishing company house we were both working for, and we both ended up going our own separate ways. He owns Gloomhouse Publishing, while I'm the owner of Last Waltz, and great friend. Lives right in Pennsylvania, so we can get together every now and then. And I picked his brains probably more times than he wanted to answer the phone. Definitely a great guy. Uh, the man who blurbed this and who watched me eat a Texas shaped waffle in Texas, Mike Enenbach over there on the middle right. Some people you just like hit it off with like the moment you meet them. And the day I met Mike, he was in rare form, but I come to find out that that's his always like that. He's always on. Amazing poet, amazing writer, hilarious dude. Um, to the far, one of the first authors who signed with Last Waltz Publishing, Mr. Jack Wells, the creator of the Monochrome Noir series. Um, and you've got to see Jack's writing. Jack hit it out of the park with this Dickensian Poe like story for our these lingering shadows, and he just continues to every time he gives me a story. I'm like, why can't I write like you? Um, Jack is an amazing guy and a really good friend. Um, Below Jack is one of the fairly newer additions to Last Waltz Publishing. Heather Miller. I tell her she's a Renaissance woman. Heather is a reviewer. She's such a supporter of the horror community. Um, she's a author. She's a poet. I, she bakes. She does everything. She's got children. She's got a family. She's got a house. She takes her own cover shots of the her book covers, and she writes amazing. Her book Tales My Grandmother Told Me was the biggest success we've ever seen with Last Waltz Publishing, and she's going to do it again this year too. So she's going to knock it out of the park. The newest addition to our family, Jay Mazer, over here on the top right, hails originally from the do we call it the Great White North, Canada? Our brothers up in Canada. Um, Jay is delivering a book. The first time I saw her, this June 15th is coming out to our label, and it's the part one of a trilogy, and it's amazing. It's really going to knock them knock 'em dead. So both Heather and Jay will have their new titles available down at Texas AuthorCon, where they will be running the Last Waltz table while I am up here having Manxiety attacks.
Hey, I am a fan of Texas. I live in Texas, so all my Texas people, I'm a huge fan. Mike, man, we need to connect because I'm in Texas. I like connecting with Texas and Texas Author Con. I will be there, so I will be on the lookout for your table, and I'll go and stop by and take a photo. But thank you guys so much for coming on. You guys are so amazing. I do have a question right off the bat for James because you were the editor on this book. So, what was that process like for you and kind of reading these stories and stuff? What was that like for you?
Well, I was familiar with Damon's work from before. I first read his book, Abigail, when we were with the same publisher, and I was really impressed by it. So, and then we released a book together called Hacked in Two. So I knew what to expect, but his writing has certainly evolved since we first met, and Manxiety it blew me away. He made my editing job very easy, which is, I'm very thankful. That's all I gotta say. Editing can be a real chore.
Right. But, it can for sure. I'm sure, I always hear from authors that have a love-hate relationship with their editor. And I feel like it's mutual for the editor as well. So I'm glad that it was a smooth process and that you were already kind of familiar with it. So from reading his book, what would you say is your favorite story, the story you resonated the most in this collection?
That's hard. They're so different. It's hard to pick a favorite. Let's see. I think Recalculating was very well written. I think let's see which one. What's it called? The Widower that one blew me away as well. A lot of dread, and then a nice creature feature component. That was cool. But I enjoyed the whole book, and the Reagan story. Terrible president, great story. I really appreciated that. Yeah, but that was good.
Wow. See, this is reasons why people should take advantage of your promotion today and to go and get your book. And the greatest thing that you can do is leave a review for the author, right? It's the greatest thing that you can do. But obviously all of you guys are writers. So I'm going to throw out this, broad question. And Damon, I want you to answer it first, and then we'll popcorn whoever else wants to answer it. But why the horror genre? What is it about it that makes you love it, that you want to write in it and your books are in that?
You know what? I just see it as I don't really see it as like, oh, I write horror, because there's tears in my books, there's laughter,
Right.
there's all that. I feel horror, what we're all lumped into, is this major category that encompasses everything. Um, I mean, honestly, if you want to throw erotica in the book, it fits. If you want to throw romance in there, it fits. I can tap into, or I try to tap into, every human emotion and try to pull that out of the reader. And I think this is the broader genre to do that.
Yeah. See, I'm a huge fan of that genre because I feel like you said, it really is an encompassment of everything, because literally anything can be a horror or scary to someone, right? Like everyday life and everyday occurrences can be scary to people depending on their personalities or the emotions that they have felt or something like that. That's, for me personally, why I love reading that from a reader standpoint, because the more twists and turns and the psychological thrillers really are my favorite, just because of my background in psychology. But to me, it's like those things where you're like, well, maybe that could really happen, or like, oh my gosh, that really happened. That kind of feeds into that horror genre, because anything really can be that. But I'm assuming that the rest of you guys write in that genre or something similar to it. So what drew you to that? Was it just always been there and you just like to do that? You like to scare people, if that's your avenue that you do? Kind of what pulled you into this genre?
I hope I'm not echoing. Am I still echoing?
No, you're good.
Okay, good. I got the headphones. I just like to read it and watch it, so that's why I write it. I enjoy it when people get scared by what I write or uncomfortable. So for me, horror is not necessarily splatterpunk, although I'm not opposed, but it's more a sense of discomfort. It's taking you out of your zone. And I think one of the first Last Waltz books that I read was Heather's Tales My Grandmother Told Me, which is, she outdoes Shirley Jackson. I was so blown away by that book. And there is an underlying sense of dread the whole time, that sounds terrible. It's entertaining to feel that dread. Like, it's just such a visceral emotion the whole time. So I like it. I grew up reading really inappropriate books and watching really inappropriate movies. Thanks, Dad. And this is what you get now.
I would echo what Jay says. Like, I grew up with Stephen King. I was reading King, I think, by 8 or 9 years old, maybe 10. I mean, at the youngest. And outside of that, I read every genre. I write most genres, but something about horror, something about the darker side of the human psyche and human personality is really more appealing. Romance is great. Everybody needs a little romance in their life, but it's so fucking boring. Give me something that's dangerous. Give me something that challenges you. Give me something that makes you uncomfortable. So for me, even though I don't primarily write horror, I kind of dip my toes in there every now and again, but I love to watch it. I love to read it, and I love to feel like discomfited. Show me something shocking, show me something that's outside of the norm, and see how that resonates. And for me, and I've talked with Damon about this repeatedly, for me, it's more interesting to put ordinary people in these extraordinary and horrifying situations and see what happens. And sometimes it brings out the best in people, and sometimes it brings out the worst, and it's always kind of a crapshoot how it's going to go. And sometimes you think so-and-so is going to behave a certain way and they don't. And that to me is really surprising, because I want to see just how it plays out and who surprises you with their behavior. So.
No, that's definitely true.
I think horror is the most forgiving genre in terms of crossover. You can incorporate fantasy, romance, sci-fi, whatever, and the story allows it. It's pretty amazing. Horror is limitless, unlike a lot of genres. And I fell in love with it as a young person, and that's continued to this day.
No, I would agree with that. Let's see. Danielle, were you saying something? I think you're muted.
On it or something?
There you go. Feel better.
Oh, okay. Well, for me, I always loved the Alfred Hitchcock movies.
Yes.
And I used to come home when I was little and watch these Vincent Price movies. So I was pretty familiar with Edgar Allan Poe, and I loved that psychological dread underneath. It was like being on a roller coaster the whole time. And I always think, oh God, if I could only write like Hitchcock does, how could I get that psychological underbelly? Like characters like Dexter or Walter White, Saul Goodman, fantastic characters. And that for me, I like to capture something that's unexpected and underneath what you'd expect. So kind of like what Jack was saying.
Cool.
Amazing stuff, so that's kind of why I write horror now.
I love it. I like to feel uncomfortable in certain situations. Like for me, the scariest movie from like a psychological thriller was Gone Girl, because it had so many like twists and turns and everything, and it's stuff that could really happen. And to me, that makes me feel so uncomfortable, but fascinated, right? But that's because of like, I love psychology and the study of the brain. I'm like, why does she do these things? Like it's a whole path. So like my husband hates when I watch those movies because I just ask a bunch of questions.
You're right,
but
yeah.
For me, I love those kinds of things. And the for me also, like being uncomfortable, like hating or secretly loving, like the protagonist or the bad character in the book or the movie, because it just makes you so uncomfortable. I love those things. So I'm a crazy person, but it's okay. I've learned to embrace it for sure. But Mike, what makes you kind of write or dabble or love to read this genre?
I don't know how to unmute. Did I unmute?
I got you.
Oh, thank God. I think almost just for the exact opposite reasons that Jack said. I like normal situations that are just a little bit off. Just slightly weird, kind of like the Twilight Zone. Just, something's wrong, but you can't pinpoint it. I think I like horror because I want to hurt the reader. Mostly.
Nice.
Okay.
I like that. Yeah.
That's good. You just want to torture them just a little bit. I like it. Yeah. I like it. Heather, what about you? You have to tell us about this book. It's been highly recommended, so you got to tell me about it.
Well, first of all, thank you, Jay. That was quite a compliment. Also, thank you for putting Jack on top of me, guys.
That was planned.
That's the way we like it.
Yeah.
I always liked horror, even when I was a little girl. Like when I was in picture books, I always would go to the Halloween section at the library and get the Halloween picture books, because from the time I was old enough to read at 4 or 5, I always just loved ghosts, witches, vampires. If it was dark and creepy, it was just what I liked. And then, Edgar Allan Poe was probably my first introduction to adult horror, which I was reading at, 10. People always ask me if I got started on the Goosebumps books, and I'm like, no, I'm too old for that, because by the time the Goosebumps books came out, I was already reading Poe. And then everybody knows about my grandma Nan. If you've read Tales My Grandmother Told Me, you know about her. She loved horror, and she was a big part of my life. And so we did horror together. We read it. We watched it together. It's just something I've always liked. And then when I write horror, I really love that you can pull so many emotions into horror. And everybody's talked about that already, but it's true. And my kind of horror is not extreme in your face. It's very like slow, creeping dread kind of stuff, because that's what I like to read, and so that's what I like to write.
See, okay, I'm gonna have to get your book. I like those. You guys are just my people, okay? This is why I'm here. You guys are my people. I'm so excited to get to meet all of you guys. So Wendy, what about you? Oh,
Muted.
you're muted, and I can't unmute you. I don't got you. There
How
you go.
about that? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not a horror author. I'm a
Okay.
horror fan. I'm a horror fan. I started reading probably The Shining in 5th grade. My father was a huge Stephen King fan, so those books were all over the place. And, you know, I read them, and I probably wasn't supposed to because I had nightmares and whatever. And then I loved Poe also. And I've always been a dark person. Rob said, or Damon said, he's known me since 3rd grade. I've probably been dark since then. You know, I'm a poet and I work out my emotions. And I think that the horror community works out their emotions in their writings. And I think it's very therapeutic and cathartic. And I see it in the community, and I see it in my own stuff.
So how did you get into poetry?
Just spitting words down, getting pissed off. I also think it's kind of code. I don't know if Mike would agree, because if you write a poem, it's not that forthcoming. It's kind of like you have to unlock a code and figure out a mystery, and there's pieces to a puzzle, and not everybody knows what you're talking about, and I like that. It's up to interpretation, really.
Yeah. So what the reader gets from it. I'm gonna have to check that out. So you guys will learn this about me. Okay. I am not a writer, obviously. If you couldn't tell that already, I'm not a writer. I just promote. But I am curious to know how many of you guys use outlines when you write your books. I failed outlines in high school. They stress me out. They give me Manxiety. Okay. They totally give me that. I can't handle that. So I would love to know, from a writer's standpoint, how many of you guys either outline or you just sit down and do it? What does that look like for you? Damon, I'm going to start with you. How did you, I guess, I'm going to say outline Manxiety, but
No, there isn't a story in there that had any idea where it was going to go once I started it. And that's, if it's a short story, if it's a novella, I'm riding by the seat of my pants the entire time, waiting for the ending to come to me. And most of the time, like, if I can say, "Oh my God, I didn't see that coming," I know I got the reader. If it's a larger thing, like, so I have a series which is a little bit shorter than The Stand and It. And that I started writing it and I'm like, "Oh geez, I'm in over my head." So what I would do is, like, I'd sit and think, and I'm like, this is going to be linear. What's the next 10 things that would happen in this scenario? And I wrote them all down, and I wrote versions of what could happen. Then I took the best ones and I said, all right, I'm going to write this scene, this scene, this scene. Then I did it again. What's the 10 next things that could happen? So I guess if it's a bigger book, I need to do a combination of the two. If it's something small, let's roll the dice. Let's see where this party goes,
See, that would be me. That's why I failed it in high school, because I would plot and then my story was nothing like my outline. I always failed my outline and just stressed me out. I was like, I don't know how people can do this. I'm not that organized by any means. But how many of you guys are outliners or plotters when you write? Anybody? Just raise your hand. You are, really?
Well,
I would not have thought that.
Let's caveat that. So the short stories that I submit to Last Waltz, those are all seat of the pants. I have no idea how they're going to go. I usually hate them up until the point that they're done, and then I'm like, oh, that's not half bad. But Monochrome Noir, it started out very much a pantser project. I had no idea where it was going. I knew the ending, but I didn't know how I was going to get there. But then once I started getting into, hey, this is going to be a 4-book series, like, there's so many disparate plot threads and stuff that I actually had to go into Office and create like a flow chart to know what day is it, who's doing what, where are they, how are they going to meet up, where are their paths going to cross. So in the like to Damon's point, in the longer form stories, I think you almost have to. So at least it doesn't meander, because I think a lot of books you'll see where they have that midsection slump where nothing happens and it kind of gets boring, and I didn't want that. So I plotted it out very heavily. But if it's a short story, like Damon said, it's all just, we'll see what happens, and it goes in unexpected places, which I think is part of the joy of a writer, because you're like, I think it's going to go A, and it goes completely to B, and you didn't see it coming, which is pretty exciting.
I like it. I feel like just from my own experience, with my whole failure thing, I feel like the stories, everyone has always told me, or authors, their characters usually take the lead and take them down wherever they go, or the journey and the process. And I feel like that's almost, for the genre that most of you guys write in, is almost what is so attractive to it, because you don't know what's coming, right? You don't know what's coming. You don't know which direction it's going to go, what characters are going to say, or anything like that. And I think it's kind of feeds into just the love of this encompassment genre, right? So I can understand that. So everybody else on here is just like a pantser. You guys just sit down and knock it out. Yeah.
So I have always been a pantser, and even if I know where my endings are, I won't even be able to tell myself. Like, I just don't follow any directions well. So I just let it go where it goes. And for my second book in this trilogy that I'm writing for Damon, I said, okay, this is a trilogy. I've never written a trilogy before. Get off your ass, write an outline. And I even took a outlining course from Write Space with David Young, and he would be so disappointed. I hope he's not watching this now. And I went and I purchased the little software, the plotter, and I filled it all in. I had it looked like a crazy person with the red string and everything, and I got literally 30 words into it, and I was off, and now I'm somewhere else. It's just not, it looks really pretty on my wall, but yeah, I won't be told. I don't follow directions very well, not even my own. So I think Danielle had mentioned Breaking Bad. Was that you, Danielle? And that's a really good example of, Jesse Pinkman was a character that wasn't a character. He was a throwaway. He wasn't supposed to be in season 2. He wasn't part of the story. And he might be one of the most important parts of that story for 5 seasons. So I like just kind of following where the characters go, and they're assholes, and you kind of gotta tag along with them and see what develops.
Yeah, I could see that. See, this is why I just live vicariously through all of you guys and your creative ability with words. The world would be so boring if we didn't have authors, and movies would be boring if we didn't have your guys' genre, for people like me who love to be scared in different ways. Not, to me, and I don't know how many of you guys will agree with this or not, but Michael Myers when I was younger was the scariest. Not, the Rob Zombie ones where he chased you, but the one where he just randomly appeared and you're like, what? You're just here and he just walk after you. To me, that gave me anxiety, because I was just like, oh, he's just walking. But next thing you know, he's there, right? I don't know. It was I love those kinds of things. But Damon, I want to know why you named this book the Manxiety. I know it's a collection of your stories and things like that, but how did the title and the cover kind of come about for your collection?
I was trying to come up with a name for it, and we were talking. I pooled a bunch of people on Facebook, and I'm like, what should we name it? And there were a lot of, the Manx Files, or and somebody came up with Manxiety, and I'm like, well, yeah, that's almost perfect, because prior to no, I've always been a bit of a nervous guy, and I've definitely had my share of social anxiety. So this fit really well. I was going to go to KillerCon last year, and I was having panic attacks. So I went to that 3-day convention, and I couldn't. It's a lot, those conventions for me. I'm not used to that still. So I would, sit at the table and then I disappear. I'm at Sonic, or I'm at wherever I'm getting some food. And while everybody else is like hanging out, drinking, like I'm done. Like 8 o'clock, I'm done. I'm
Yeah.
back in the room. See you tomorrow. So it really fit perfectly. Manxiety. I'm like, wow, that really sums up the headspace I'm in, and what this the transformation that this book is about. Yeah.
See, when I read the title, I knew exactly what it was about. So I'm sure I am the same way as you. I don't like going to in-person events. I'm very much like, it's too people-y here and I need to leave. Doing online events, like, hey, yes, this is my comfort zone. But in person, I'm just like, no, like, I'm one of those, like in high school and stuff, I was like a pin tapper. I would just sit there and wiggle it back and forth and pray that nobody talked to me because I'm just socially awkward like that. So I knew right away that from the title of your book what it was about, and it really resonated with me. And I think that is something that readers can appreciate, because I am a huge stickler for, if I can read the title and the book cover and I know what the book's about, I'm more likely to buy it than if I have to kind of guess and figure it out, right? I don't really like doing that. I want to know what I'm kind of getting into. Now, within your stories, if you take me down a psychological torment and you torture me like Mike likes to do, right? That's different. But I knew instantly what it was about. And I think it's something that a lot of people struggle with, anxiety. And I think having that, to resonate with people that are struggling probably in the same way or have, I think is important. And so it was one when you mentioned, Killer Con and in-person events. I'm like, you and me would just be BFFs online, online.
And I openly, I air my dirty laundry online. I'm an open book. I'll talk about it all. And I speak about anxiety too, and whatever pearls of wisdom I might have to offer or not, I'm happy to share it. So that's kind of been my thing too, to talk about these human defects, I guess, human deficiencies that I have that other people might have, that, we can find a common ground with.
Yeah, a bond over, which I think
Yeah.
it's important, right? It's not something that a lot of people talk about. A lot of people don't feel comfortable talking about having anxiety or being in difficult situations for someone that has anxiety. So I think it's important. And that's why I'm just like, I'm here for it 100%. Like, nobody until now like knows that I am not I'm not a social butterfly in person at events, you guys. I know it's hard to believe, but it's definitely definitely true 100%. But what is next for you in terms of, is Manxiety going to be kind of like a series of collections over the years, or is this kind of like a one and done? What can we kind of expect from you coming up?
There will be another collection, but that's down the road. Manxiety is my own personal release for this year. I'm going to be focusing on the other authors in the Last Waltz Publishing world and their releases for the rest of the year, while I finish a series that I've been working on for the last 3 years.
Ooh.
And that's a 4-book series that I hope to release next year, which has actually been even more of my life's work than Manxiety is. So,
way to tease us.
Yeah.
To tease us.
I will say this. So it takes place in 1979 in a isolated mountain town the week before Halloween. It's
Okay.
a creature feature. If I have to tease it in any way, I would say Stranger Things meets Pandemic. So,
Oh, okay. I like it. I like your tease. I'm kind of mad that I don't get to read it right now, but I like your tease because I'm in for it. I like it a lot. But what a way to, go out before you start focusing on all your other authors that you're publishing, being number one and being a bestseller with this collection that is so personal for you. And it's, it's such an exciting time. A lot of people explain, or I guess explained to me, when you publish a book, it doesn't matter if it's your first book or your fifth book or whatever, there's like this relief, and it really is like, birthing your book baby. And so I'm just excited I get to sit here and talk and meet all of you guys and hear all about the collection and the stories, and to celebrate you being number one. So what an exciting way to, kind of conclude your part of the year before you go out and push your efforts for your other amazing authors. So it's exciting.
It's been an exciting day, I'll tell you that much. It started early, and it's just continued to go. But I trying to take us all in stride. But it's been a great day. And book release days can be very stressful. But yeah, I'm hoping that that Manxiety is read by a large audience, and that's my goal, is to share this piece of my life with as many people who will have me share it.
Absolutely. I think that's kind of the goal for all authors, but I think it's, especially when it's something so personal for you, I think it makes it, extra special. But I love release day and launch day because it's so much fun, and I like the tension. I thrive in that environment of the tension and the watching of the rankings, and that like stress just really feeds my soul, which is a weird way to say it, but it's definitely true. So today's been so much fun and exciting for me, and overwhelming for you, but it's so much fun. And I know you look at all the support that you have that's on with us today. So I want to pop around to everybody and let you guys talk about your books, whether you have a book coming out this year or some other books that you have published, and kind of let us know how we can find all of you guys. Who wants to go first? Not everybody raise their hand at once. All right, we're going to do popcorn. James, I'm going to go to you because you're the first person my eyes went to.
Fair enough. Well, I have several books. Some I love, some we have a strained relationship. But I have a book coming out, hopefully in a few months. It's hopefully the first novel in a series. It's a fantasy, cosmic fantasy, horror noir, and creature feature. And it's just incredibly weird. All my stuff is weird. That's more than anything in horror. I appreciate absurdist horror. If it's too normal, I can't really get behind it. But yeah, and I also have my book with Damon, Hacked in Two. My story, Red Falls, is in there, which is, again, it's weird, has a lot of satire. And then Damon's story is pretty brutal and has some cool metafiction components. But my most popular book is probably a tie between my collection, Seven Exhumations, and my novella, Midnight in the City of the Carrion Kid. They sell the best, even though they're not really my favorites anymore because I've kind of evolved as a writer since then. But I still very fond of them.
Wow. So what's next for you?
Well, and I have some collaborations coming up, which I can't really talk about yet, unfortunately. They're still in the planning phase. But yeah, just and I'm always editing, formatting, publishing, so I stay very busy.
I can imagine. Well, thanks for being on and partying with Damon and celebrating his Manxiety and the amazing things that it has done and is going to continue to do.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm very excited about it.
Absolutely. Mike, I'm going to go to you.
It's been a big year, but more importantly, Damon, congrats, man. You're a badass, and I'm happy for you. You definitely deserve all of this, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much, bro.
You're
awesome.
Hey, maybe. Like in the last 2 weeks, Candace Nola and I put out Bishop 2 and The Generator with Eric Author and Nick Robinson. And in August, I have another poetry collection coming out called Unbroken. And I think in September, what I think is probably the best thing I'll ever do is called Cuckoo, and it's going to come out.
Wow. Big year for you.
Big.
A lot of releases and stuff. Well, congratulations. I'm so glad that you could be on to celebrate Damon with us tonight.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Jay, let's go to you.
Well, I got nothing going on. I mean, I don't wear pants most days, and I drink too much coffee. No, a big thank you to Damon for giving me a chance with this. The first time I saw her book that comes out on June 15th, I had a lot of doubts about this one because I didn't know where my people were. I write a lot of folk horror, but it teeters on the edge of being body horror, so it's kind of like, who is my audience? I still don't even know. And then I read Heather's stuff, and I read Jack, and I read James and Mike's poetry, and I'm like, okay, so these are my people. So I do have people, and I appreciate getting that chance. So I do have that coming out on the 15th. And then I have a set of 4 novellas that are previously published, but I'm smushing them into a single collection to release on Canada Day on July 1st. And then, like James, I have 4 projects, anthologies coming out between now and December that I'm part of, which I can't speak of all of them. Maybe Heather's, I'll let her. But yeah, so I have those in the works.
Nice. Well, it's always lovely to see you, and I'm
Nice
so
to see you
glad
again.
that you could be on to party and celebrate with Damon and his Manxiety. So thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Jack, let's go to you.
Well, I think I need to revisit Monochrome Noir at some point and look into potentially getting that as an audio book. Damon and I have talked about that a little bit, but we've been kind of busy, so I probably need to get back to that. Outside of that, I am slowly working on an anthology or a collection, really, for Last Waltz, tentatively titled Jack of All Trades, because that's the low-hanging fruit and it's easy to do. So, but it's going to kind of cross genres. I will have some revisit to the Monochrome Noir universe plus some standalone stuff. It's going to go more to the horror side than Monochrome Noir did. I don't know that that's going to be this year. I would love it if it is, but life is kind of proving to be difficult. So I don't think it'll be this year. Remain ever hopeful. But outside of that, just whatever Damon throws my way. So yeah, it might probably be a quiet year for me.
I love it. Well, I'm glad that I got to meet you and that you could be on to celebrate Manxiety with Damon. Celebrate him and his bestseller self. So with all that, Wendy, let's hear from you. You're muted.
I'm the constant reader, so I'll be constantly reading. I'm attending all of the Manxiety tour, so I'll be going to different places to try and sell this book and introduce Damon Manx to other people.
I love it. You're like his #1 fan. I love it.
Oh, geez, don't say that.
I love it. Well, Wendy, it was so nice to meet you, and thank you so much for coming and celebrating with Damon and his big success for his book today.
Of course.
Thank you.
I love that. Heather, what about you?
Okay, this is a huge year for me. First of all, you can already get my book Knock Knock, which is a modern Gothic ghost story. And then last year, Tales My Grandmother Told Me came out, which is a collection based on stories that my grandmother literally told us growing up. But this year, my big thing with Last Waltz is my book, What the Dead Leave Behind, which is a collection of 4 sort of novelettes, like 15, 20,000 words each, all stories based on people who are haunted by something someone else in their life left behind when they died. Some of them are scary, some of them are just sort of sad, but that's going to have a special early release. I guess I shouldn't say early release. We will have some special early copies at Texas AuthorCon in July. And then the book itself will release on September 14th, I think. Yes, Damon? Yes? Okay.
Let me check that again.
I think it's the 14th.
Yep, September 14th.
Okay. And then I have, I want to say it's stories in 10 different anthologies coming out this year. And I'm not going to try to name them all because I will forget some. But my other big thing this year is that I personally am editing and publishing an anthology, which Jay is part of. So yes, we'll talk about it a little bit, which is called House of Haunts. And it is, what's our tagline? 24 rooms, 24 ghosts, 24 stories. And we have 24 different authors, mostly indie authors, a couple of not so indie authors who are all writing stories based on a different room in what surely must be the most haunted house in the world. So that's going to come out on Friday the 13th in October. And we are very excited about that. It's kind of turned into a much huger thing than I meant for it to in the beginning, but I think it's going to be really cool when it comes out.
They always
Awesome.
do. They always tend to snowball. You start off, you're like, I'm only going to do this. And then they just snowball and get massive. So that I understand. But wow. Well, thanks. It was so lovely to meet you. And thanks for coming out and celebrating with Damon and his
Yay,
big
Damon.
success. All right. Danielle, I'd love to hear from you.
Well, let me just say, congratulations, Damon. You worked so hard. You deserve all of this.
Thank you.
Good stuff to you.
Thank you so much.
All good stuff. So, this year, I feel like I'm like the newbie of all of you, because I'm like looking at everything you guys done, and I'm like, wow, I wish I could do that. I could never do that. So, but I do have some good things coming out this year. I'm working on a bunch of collection of cross-genre stories. And I hope to have them published. And I have all these little bits and pieces in my head, all these scenes, and I'm just writing them all down. So, and now, when they start gelling to become a story, it's like, I'm like, ooh, I'm kind of wanting the this Gothic story that I'm writing as a novella to be part of that collection. Something along the lines of Rebecca, something along the lines of a ghost story, and some other things. So I hope to.
Nice.
You were
really
recently
surprise
in the anthology with Fear Forge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I was recently in the anthology of the Fear Forge anthology, the witch themed anthology, the spring one. So if you want to hear about Salem witches, my story's called Animal Revenge, and it's a little Orwellian.
Very cool.
Wow.
just to whet your appetite a little bit.
Nice.
So what genre are you crossing over with?
In my stories, there is a Shakespearean inspired one.
Okay.
There's a romantic kind of ghost story type of thing.
Okay.
There's the novella, and there's something about a wedding that may or may not be kosher.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thanks so much for coming and hanging out and celebrating Damon and his book, Manxiety.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Damon, this day is all about you. And it is my favorite thing that I get and have the privilege and honor of doing for authors, which is celebrating their book, becoming Amazon bestsellers and #1 bestsellers. And your book, and you definitely deserve it. And your support system that you have is amazing. And I'm so grateful I got to meet all of you guys and hear about your writing and your stories. But the biggest thing for me is celebrating this #1 with you on a book that is so personal for you, and it's so well deserved. And so I'm extremely grateful that you let me host it and celebrate with you and get to meet all of your friends and family that's with us here today. So you guys, don't forget, you can go and take advantage of the promotion that Damon is running on his book. It is 99 cents. So make sure you go out there and you grab your copy. But remember, the greatest thing that you can do for any author is to leave them a review. And it's just one of those standard things that I do as a reader on any book that I publish, or not publish, but purchase. I go and I leave a review, and it helps the author become a better writer, but it helps them just better on Amazon and know what you like and what you don't like. So it's definitely an important thing to do. But Damon, man, congratulations. What an amazing, exciting day of many more bestseller books that I know you are going to produce and publish as well. So I'm so excited for you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all your help in putting this day together. I couldn't have done it without you. I couldn't have done it without everybody here, and I couldn't have done it without the support of the horror community. I mean, everybody rallied together and made it happen. And I was a small part of it, really. It was very overwhelming.
Absolutely. The writing community, all genres, and the horror one specifically, is just amazing, which is why I do what I do, and I love working with you guys. So you guys, make sure you go out and get your copy of Manxiety. It is 99 cents. But until next time, everybody, this has been an amazing book launch and a #1 bestseller for Damon. So until next time, bye, everybody.